After 6 months of heartfelt preparation for my book launch, my kids surprised me with a transformation I never expected. Every keystroke felt like a heartbeat in Sarah's cramped living room. The aroma of cold coffee mingled with the comfort of well-worn pages, a testament to a 6-month struggle that often felt like wading through mud just to breathe. As a determined single mother, each night ravaged the boundaries between dream and duty, demanding her relentless focus as she typed the narrative of her tumultuous journey, balancing motherhood while grasping for a dream that shimmered just out of reach. The words flowed during those quiet hours, but with every stroke, there lingered a pulsing doubt. Would anyone even care? Those whispers echoed loudly, especially since the gossip mill had been in overdrive lately, pooling opinions about her self-publishing endeavor. Critics whispered about the validity of self-publishing, dismissing it as vanity draped in pen and ink. The fear latched onto her as she busily prepared for her launch, tightening around her chest like a vice. She couldn't shake the thought that perhaps they were right. Did her story matter? Late nights spent scrubbing floors after nursing shifts contributed little to the growing apprehension that enveloped her, suffocating her initial excitement. Each day felt like a tightrope walk between her role as a caretaker and her pursuit of self. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. And then, just days away from her launch, a local author, celebrated and intimidating, publicly mocked her work as nothing more than a compilation of disjointed thoughts meant exclusively for her children. The visceral sting cut deep, sending a shockwave of insecurity through her. Would confronting him brand her as confrontational? Would it alter her standing within a tight-knit community already ripe with skepticism toward her dreams? The consequences of standing up for herself rolled through her mind like thunder, leaving her paralyzed. She felt torn. The urge to defend her work clashed violently with her desire to maintain a harmonious presence in the community that held her. In that whirlwind of doubt, Sarah's children became unwitting witnesses to her internal plight. Their innocent gaze observed, unperturbed by the shadows looming over their mother's resolve. Inspired by her unwavering spirit, they plotted a surprise that would warm her heart, a transformation of their cozy home into a launch space vibrant with their colorful dreams. Their laughter and determination behind the scenes swirled amidst her worries, adding layers of pressure and complexity to her turmoil. As the night cloaked her feelings in shadows, Sarah stepped through the front door, heart racing. What awaited inside? The unknown loomed larger than life. She was caught between self-doubt and the outpouring of love from her precious children. Would they see her crumble, or would they find a fierce advocate? As she stood on that precipice, the sense of foreboding intensified. The world demanded recognition for endeavors that felt trivial, while her heart silently screamed to be heard. The doorbell rang, a soft yet urgent reminder that support could arrive from unexpected quarters. Outside lay the unknown, and in that moment of tension, the battle for recognition simmered relentlessly within her, aching for resolve. Sarah stood frozen at the door, clutching the handle as uncertainty clawed at her resolve. When she eased the door open, the vibrant chaos of her children's efforts unfolded before her eyes. Streamers hung from the ceiling, banners painted with words of encouragement draped across the walls, and a table was adorned with snacks they had prepared together, albeit somewhat haphazardly. Each detail reflected their belief in her. It was a visual manifestation of the love they had for her and the sacrifices she made. The familiar chaos of her life, with its untidy corners and vibrant energy, suddenly struck a chord deep within her. For the first time in weeks, the icy doubt that had consumed her began to thaw. These were reminders of why she started this journey in the first place. Her heart raced, but this time, it was not solely panic. It was a crescendo of hope. As laughter resonated through the small space, Sarah felt an unexpected warmth wash over her. She watched them with admiration, their excitement a stark contrast to the weight pressing against her chest. They saw her as a hero, not because of a book that may or may not resonate with readers, but because she was their mother, fiercely devoted and endlessly striving. Maybe they were right. Maybe her story, in all its imperfect fragments, defied the critiques she had internalized. But the moment of peace was short-lived. Just as she began to feel buoyed by her children's enthusiasm, a flicker of doubt crept back in, the sting of the local author's disparagement still fresh. Did she possess the strength to stand firm against the whispers of judgment? The fear of failure hovered like a dark cloud in the sunlight of her children's joy. "Mom, are you ready?" Her daughter's voice cut through the turmoil. Sarah's pulse quickened again. Launching the book was looming closer, a tangible event tethered to her personal fears. Her daughter's bright eyes glimmered, brimming with expectation. Somehow, amidst the swirling thoughts, Sarah caught herself caught between their hopes and her insecurities. "Ready as I'll ever be," she forced a smile, though the uncertainty lingered beneath the surface. As banners fluttered gently, so did her thoughts. Had she invested enough of herself into this story? What if it fell flat? What if everyone sneered, just as that author had? The stakes felt impossibly high, and she found herself yearning for anything but this moment of reckoning. Yet, watching her children rush about, tirelessly preparing, she recognized a burgeoning strength within her. It was rooted in the realization that she had a choice: to define her own narrative or allow others to script it for her. Boldly, the decision took form. Sarah needed to confront the author, not only for herself, but for her children, who deserved to see their mother standing tall. This was her arena, not merely a book, but a testament to persistence and self-worth. Suddenly, her vision sharpened with newfound clarity. No more sidestepping, no more second-guessing. Whether light or shadow, her story was valid, and now it was time to claim that space fiercely. That night, the laughter faded into the background as she plotted her next steps. Her heart pounded, but it was no longer a rhythm of fear. It was the heartbeat of determination. With the launch looming just around the corner, the time had come to face not just one critic, but the entire chorus of doubt. As her resolve solidified, the tension rose. She could almost hear the thunder rumbling, signaling a storm of action brewing on the horizon. Tomorrow she would stand her ground, a mother willing to fight for her narrative. But first, she had a family to embrace and a moment to appreciate before that confrontation. As she settled into the familiar chaos of love that surrounded her, the quiet crescendo of self-discovery echoed in her heart. Would embracing her truth turn the tide, or would it invite even more stormy scrutiny? It was a question that loomed larger than life. Sarah was standing at the edge of something profound, and she could feel the weight of every day culminating into a pivotal moment hanging just before her. What awaited was as exhilarating as it was terrifying. The dawn broke, with an unsettling clarity, illuminating the remnants of last night's celebration. Sarah sat at the edge of her bed, crossed legs folded beneath her, merely absorbing the silence. The warmth of her children's laughter still enveloped her, but the gravity of the day ahead pressed heavily on her shoulders. Today was not just about the launch of her book. It was the crescendo of her fears and aspirations colliding. As she stood to get ready, her hands trembled slightly, betraying her inner turmoil. Yet, the pulse of determination threaded through her nerves. She gathered her thoughts, calculating each movement as though the day was a carefully penned chapter. In the mirror, she allowed herself a moment of candor, scrutinizing the reflection of a woman caught between doubt and courage. This was her moment, and no external voice could dictate how it would unfold. After the usual morning chaos of breakfast and school preparations, she took a deep breath, absorbing the nurturing buzz her home provided. Each banter, each playful shove exchanged between her children was a reinforcement of her decision. They believed in her. Could she too believe in herself? The clock rushed forward, pulling her from daydreams. The drive to the launch venue was filled with anxious excitement. Although a mere 10 minutes from her home, each second felt elongated, as if every turn and red light served as a test of her resolve. She glanced at her phone, hesitating to check messages, perhaps reminders of past critiques, and shoved it into her bag, choosing instead to focus on the flickering enthusiasm brewing inside. As she parked, the reality of the venue began to sink in. The subdued tones of the building stood in stark contrast to the vibrant decorations from her children's efforts. Yet this place felt surreal, a blend of familiarity and fear. Sarah stepped outside, pulling air deep into her lungs as she approached the front entrance. The swell of conversation inside beckoned her. Each sound was a reminder of the audience waiting for her words, her truth. Inside, she navigated the crowd that seemed to part just for her. Faces turned. Some appeared curious, others supportive. She spotted the local author who had dismissed her work weeks ago, his presence a stark reminder of the shadows she sought to confront. Her steps faltered for just a heartbeat. Did she dare acknowledge him? And then, just as she had envisaged, the choice crystallized in her mind. With a deliberate movement, she made her way toward him, her heart pounding a relentless rhythm. Every step brought back memories of fear, of the cutting remarks that had almost derailed her ambitions. This was it. Her moment not just to launch a book, but to reclaim her narrative. "Excuse me," she relinquished, unable to suppress the tremor in her voice. "We need to talk." His eyes widened slightly as he processed her approach. For a moment, the words hung between them, raw and charged with emotion. Did he sense her determination? Did he understand that this confrontation was as much for her as it was for the future she was crafting for her children? Encouraged by the sudden clarity in her mind, she began to speak, reclaiming space with each word. There was no retreat this time. A fire sparked within her as she rattled off the challenges she had faced, her motivations, her doubts, and the love her children had poured into her journey. As she poured her heart out, a realization dawned on her. This was more than a confrontation. It was a declaration of her right to exist authentically in a world that often suffocated individuality. But just as words flowed, affirming her readiness, she felt a shift in the energy around her. The murmurs from the crowd heightened her awareness of eager ears. Would they champion her truth or fuel more judgment? The delicate balance of anticipation and dread made her pulse race, and she knew she was standing at the precipice of something monumental. She was no longer just a mother or a writer. She was a resilient force, standing firm in her identity. The assembly watched. Questions lingered in the air, ready to be transformed into an embrace of empathy or judgment. Overwhelmed but resolute, she prepared to step into her truth once again. Could she harness this moment and emerge victorious? As she opened her mouth to continue, the crowd hushed, hanging on the precipice of her words. What awaited her in that moment was not only her story, but also the decisive impact it would have on those who listened. And as she stood in front of them, the moment felt charged with a promise of transformation. Would her voice be enough to silence the doubts that had haunted her for so long? The crowd hushed, a collective breath held in anticipation. For Sarah, the silence amplified the rhythm of her heartbeat, each thud a reminder of both her vulnerability and burgeoning strength. The author before her had brushed aside her dreams before. Now, she was determined to transform that rejection into motivation. "Your feedback," she continued, managing to meet his gaze despite the weight of the moment, "stung more than you might have realized, but it also ignited a fire I didn't know I had." The crowd leaned in, sensing the momentum shift. With every word, she peeled back layers of her defenses. "When your critique focused on my writing flaws, I almost believed you. I almost gave up." Her voice trembled only slightly. "But I have learned that my voice matters, that my children deserve to see me fight for my dreams. I refuse to let doubt dictate my path any longer." The author's brow furrowed in an expression that mingled surprise with intrigue. In that instant, Sarah saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a sliver of respect as she transformed her vulnerability into empowerment. Doubt cast aside, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. A ripple of murmur moved through those surrounding her, a blend of encouragement and disbelief. Sarah wasn't simply confronting her past, she was challenging the perceptions that had plagued her. She sensed more than just individual eyes on her. This wasn't merely her fight. It had turned into a poignant turning point, one that could resonate beyond her own ambitions. Feeling the weight of her words, she pressed on, amplifying her resolve. "I'm not just here to showcase a book. I'm here to prove that passion can bloom in the face of adversity, that every parent, every aspiring writer filled with doubt can stand tall and share their truth. Our stories are powerful, deserve to be seen, heard, validated." As she spoke, her confident swell transformed her demeanor. The self-doubt that had crippled her at earlier moments was melting away, replaced with an innate sense of purpose. The crowd, now captivated by her narrative, leaned into her conviction, allowing her message to find a foothold within them. But as Sarah reached the climax of her speech, a new fear began to worm its way into her mind. What if this moment didn't change anything? What if they were still quietly judging her? Yet, a deeper resilience reminded her that this moment was not solely about accolades or the judgments of others. It was for her, and the legacy she wanted to create for her children. She turned back to the author, her voice steadying. "I hope you can see now that your words, while they temporarily dimmed my light, significantly fueled my journey." It was a quiet challenge, a fold of meekness and assertiveness, intended to spark a reconciliation, a shift in their dynamic. And then came the realization. This wasn't merely about confronting him, it was the beginning of her own journey toward belief in self. Standing before an audience, she discovered depths of strength previously obscured by the shadows of her insecurities. She was shedding layers of herself that had been dictated by others' judgments. As the moment lingered, Sarah prepared to conclude. She harnessed every ounce of clarity she had gleaned from her experience. "In sharing my story today, I embrace not just the triumphs, but the struggles, as they shape us into who we are meant to be. My past rewrites itself with each step I take now. I am here to encourage everyone, even those who doubt, to pursue their voice without fear." The applause erupted, a wave of reassurance sweeping over her. In this moment, perceptions shifted, not just for her author counterpart, but for every individual in that crowd. She didn't just reclaim her narrative, she ignited belief in her audience. Exhilaration blended with unease as she noticed the author shifting, a hint of acknowledgement flashing in his eyes. She had captured something intangible but vital, his attention. Would he speak up? Would he reflect her transformation back into the world? As she descended from the makeshift stage, a whirlwind of emotions enveloped her. The crowd buzzed with energy, questions floating in the air. Would they rally around her advocacy for authenticity and supporting one another's journeys? Sarah had to move beyond her encounter with doubt, but there was still an unresolved thread of tension, one that compelled transformation both from her audience and herself. In the midst of the electrifying atmosphere, an uninvited thrill darted through her. It wasn't the applause or the eyes wide with possibility that captivated her, but the narrative arc of her journey, her fears, trials, and rising courage. The real challenge was yet to unfold. Suddenly, she caught sight of the local author re-entering the fray, and in that moment, she knew there was still much more to confront than what she had just unleashed. What words would come next? The possibilities hung in the air like an unspooled thread, waiting to be woven into a life still unfolding. Sarah stepped off the makeshift stage, her heart still racing from the intensity of her words. The energy in the room pulsed, an electric current of shared stories and mutual anticipation. She found herself at the intersection of doubt and possibility, feeling both exhilarated and vulnerable at the same time. As she navigated through the crowd, the weight of her speech settled around her like a comforting embrace. Yet, she sensed that the moment was only the beginning of a much deeper journey. The author's presence loomed in her mind. His acknowledgement had felt both validating and intimidating. It sparked the question, what did it truly mean to her to confront him now? Sarah glanced toward him, who was engaged in conversation with a small group of listeners. Despite the applause and affirmation surrounding her, the internal dialogue persisted. She had opined on daring to share her story, yet the remnants of his critique still circled in the recesses of her memory. She realized then that this encounter carried the weight of accountability, not just to herself, but to everyone who had rallied around her. She paused, taking a deep breath and allowing herself a moment of introspection. The echo of her confident declaration reminded her of the fears that had previously shackled her ambitions. The momentary thrill of triumph mingled with an apprehension that the fight wasn't over. It was merely transforming. She faced a different kind of fear now, one that was rooted in the expectation that followed her moment of vulnerability. Wary yet determined, Sarah edged closer to the gathering around the author. His demeanor had shifted since her speech, the spark of respect exchanged between them seeming to cast him as a potential ally rather than just a critic. What would it take to solidify this bridge? She mulled over the possibilities, her heart racing as she reevaluated her approach. "Do you think it's possible to change someone's perspective?" she whispered to herself. She considered the night's title, Validation Through Confrontation. Would he embrace her newfound confidence, or retreat to the shadows of judgment? "Are you all right?" A voice interrupted her thoughts, sharp and familiar. It was Jessica, an old friend and fellow writer, someone who had watched Sarah struggle through self-doubt and now observed her moment of transformation. "I am, more than I expected," Sarah replied, her eyes lingering on the author as he animatedly engaged the crowd. Jessica leaned in, lowering her voice. "You appeared so powerful up there. Your journey resonates, and it can push others to reflect on their own walls. Which makes me wonder if I'm ready to step deeper into this light," Sarah admitted, feeling a tug of apprehension as she weighed the gravity of her newfound influence. What if they still doubt me? What if this is just the beginning of their scrutiny? "Then you'll confront it like you did tonight," Jessica reassured her. "It's all part of your story now. You've faced worse." With a determined nod, Sarah resolved to explore exactly what she had ignited within herself. Each moment of clarity she experienced was a thread of confidence weaving into her narrative. She had opened a door, but she couldn't afford to stand behind it. Soon, as she gathered her courage, she felt an emotional pull to step towards the author, a desire to cultivate dialogue beyond their previous encounter. The space around them pulsed with expectation, and she fought against the instinct to shrink back. Instead, she edged forward, determined to build upon the acknowledgement exchanged earlier. Just as Sarah approached, she heard a question float through the air from the group around him. What does it take to break past rejection as a writer? The author shifted his gaze to her, inviting her into the conversation. Would she have the strength to speak up when it mattered most? In that heart-stopping moment, with all eyes on her, she felt the swirling mix of exhilaration and trepidation threaten to paralyze her. What if this moment became the crux of her next challenge? The undeniable truth was clear. She was ready to confront this new landscape of possibilities, or perhaps an old landscape with different variables aggravating her internal conflict. As Sarah opened her mouth, poised to respond, she felt the spotlight of her own resilience burning bright within her. But the lingering fear stirred deep down, questioned if she could truly break free, or whether she'd falter under the weight of expectation. The stakes heightened as the next chapter awaited to unfold. The room viscerally tensed, her heartbeat thundering in her ears as Sarah found her voice. To break past rejection as a writer, she began, her words driven by an urgency that stoked the embers of her newfound self-awareness. You must first accept that rejection is part of the journey. Every no is just as vital as the yes because they shape the narrative we carry forward. The group fell silent, their attention unwavering. The author, intrigued, nodded, encouraging her momentum. Rejection teaches resilience. Each piece you write is an invitation to confront vulnerability. You cannot let the fear of judgment deter you. Her words flowed, unfiltered, unlocking a part of herself she had long sheltered. She felt her earlier triumph transform into a collective experience, one that intertwined her story with those in the room. As Sarah spoke, she noticed the shift in the expression of the author. Respect mixed with curiosity flickered behind his eyes. Was he recalling his own struggles? She sensed an opening, a challenge she could rise to as much as he had to his own past. It was a moment fraught with potential, a shared understanding igniting between them. And what if we become trapped in that rejection? Another voice chimed in, a young writer with dark curls nervously fidgeting with a pen. How do we navigate through it when it feels insurmountable? There it was, a direct confrontation, an authentic query she had once asked herself 100 times. Sarah inhaled deeply, suppressing the wavering of doubt that threatened to creep in. It was a test, a chance to fortify her narrative. I think, Sarah said, crafting her thoughts with care, that you must re-navigate your relationship with your worth. Understand that every rejection has no bearing on your value as a writer or a person. You have to keep creating despite the noise. Write for yourself. Let the joy of expression be your compass, and let the rejection simply be part of the landscape. The murmurs of agreement swept through the audience, affirming her message. With each affirmation, the internal doubts began to dissipate. Roots of confidence began pushing through the soil of self-doubt. She realized she was not just speaking. She was guiding her fellow writers through their darkness, motivating them to find light. Yet, amidst the support, another swell of fear arose. What if she was left unprotected in this journey toward empowerment? The specters of her past would arise sooner or later. What if this understanding illuminated areas of her life she wasn't ready to confront? The uncomfortable truth loomed, murmuring through her subconscious, urging her to acknowledge moments of abandonment in her personal life. The risk of stepping deeper into this light was formidable. Your perspectives matter, reiterated the author, breaking the contemplative reverie of the group. But know that crafting a story is a continuous process. Even the greatest writers faced rejection multiple times. It's how they persevered and redefined their voice that shaped their greatness. The weight of his words hung in the air, almost a revelation. Sarah met his gaze, the culmination of their previous encounters now crystallizing into a powerful alliance. Perhaps she could learn through this interaction more than through her own solitary endeavors. It wasn't merely about seeking approval, but rather sharing insights, each moment a stepping stone toward growth. Thank you for that counsel, Sarah said, feeling buoyed by her compliance to this newfound journey. Let us embrace rejection and face it, a catalyst of transformation instead of a death knell for our creativity. With lingering applause, Sarah felt the room embrace her message. As the atmosphere shimmered with a palpable connection, she silently vowed to confront her fears and nurture this community, emboldened by the prospect of her growth leading to theirs. Yet beneath the surface, insecurity chewed at her edges. Was she ready? The question hung suspended as another thought surfaced. A slow burn of realization that the past would always leave shadows. Her journey wasn't solely outward, it beckoned inward as well. As she stepped away from the epiphany, anticipation coiled in her mind. She had committed to move forward, yet now there was a deeper challenge ahead. In the midst of possibility and community, what aspects of her past were waiting to surface? Would she be able to face them in the light she had begun to embrace? The evening felt pivotal, and as voices filled the space, Sarah felt the weight of her story expand. Perhaps confronting the shadows was the next stage of her evolution, one that intrigued and terrified her simultaneously. What did acceptance truly entail? And could she allow herself to expose the vulnerable parts she had been guarding? The answers would lead her to the next defining moment of her journey, a chapter yet to unfold. The night air crackled with unspoken tensions as Sarah stepped out of the venue, the vibrant energy of the crowd lingering like a warm glow enveloping her. Outside, the city felt alive, the streets pulsating with a rhythm that mirrored her own whirlwind of emotions. She felt exhilarated, yet suspended between exhilaration and fear, caught in a delicate balance that threatened to tip either way. As she walked, the sounds of the bustling metropolis faded into the background, leaving her alone with her thoughts. The affirmations from the writers had filled her with hope, but the looming shadows from her past widened their presence in her mind. Each step towards home felt like a step into the unknown. This time, she had stirred something profound, an awakening not just for herself, but for the pieces of her that she had long hidden away. Deep within, she understood that the journey wasn't merely about crafting compelling narratives. It required unearthing the buried memories that shaped her. Memories of solitude, moments when words seemed to betray her, when rejection transformed from a transient sting to a soul-crushing reality. The path to her voice was fraught with echoes of the past, waiting to demand their tribute. Arriving home, she leaned against the door for a moment, still wrestling with her thoughts. The familiar trappings of her life enveloped her. She could hear the soft murmur of her children in the other room, innocent and oblivious to her internal battle. The contrast struck her. The chaos of motherhood juxtaposed against her solitary quest for personal truth. Her kids called out to her, and Sarah's heart swelled momentarily. It was a joy tangible enough to dispel the darkness threatening to encroach upon her clarity. She walked towards them, fully aware of the juxtaposition of their simplicity and her complexity. They embraced her with laughter and stories of their own small victories from the day, but their joy also intensified the ache of her own hidden struggles. Knitting together her roles of mother, writer, and an evolving individual felt daunting. Were these children, so full of light, also products of her choices? Would they carry forward her own fears, that imprisoned self-doubt she now had to wrestle with? As the night wore on, she read them stories, her voice steady, but tumultuous thoughts brewed in the background. With every word spoken, she realized that vulnerability could be an endearing bridge between herself and them. Stories had the power to both protect and reveal, the very essence of her growth. That realization sparked a new idea. As a writer, she could begin crafting personal narratives that entwine lessons, both for herself and her children. If she faced her fears openly, perhaps her children might learn to confront their own. The prospect felt transformative. Could she turn her shadows into narratives of resilience instead of paralysis? After tucking them in, Sarah returned to her laptop, the screen illuminating her face in a soft glow. The empty document blinked expectantly. Words began to spill forth, memories spilling out alongside the joy of creation. This writing wasn't merely practice. It was a confrontation with herself, a journal of discovery through the lens of motherhood and the nuances of rejection. Yet, with each keystroke, a nagging voice insisted on the weight of scars yet to be addressed, a reminder that the past must be acknowledged, must be engaged. The journey of acceptance she had spoken about would come at a cost. What would she have to sacrifice to face the darkest corners of her narrative? What truths would unravel? As this internal conflict brewed, Sarah felt unease forming, a stark contradiction between her desire for connection and the fear of exposure. The need to confront her history clawed at her, daring her to delve deeper. The pivotal revelations of acceptance loomed over her. But what if the truth she unearthed would challenge her very foundation? The prospect felt thrilling yet terrifying. As she penned her story, the emotional stakes rose, threading through her writing like veins of gold, illuminating yet demanding accountability. The realization deepened within her. She wasn't merely revealing herself to her audience. She was revealing herself to her children, creating a legacy of authenticity that could fortify them against the rejections life would inevitably bring. And in the quiet companionship of the night, Sarah knew she was on the brink of something profound. Would she find the courage to embrace her vulnerabilities in full view? The words beckoned her, pulsing with urgency. The shadows awaited as her past cried out for recognition, teasing the fragile architecture of her new narrative. With her heart racing, Sarah poised her fingers over the keyboard. The moment approached, the challenge waiting to be confronted, a truth urging her to dive into the depths of her history. The question echoed in her mind. Could she truly bear the weight of her past to forge a brighter path for her future? Only time would unveil the answer. The next morning, Sarah woke with a fresh sense of determination coursing through her veins. The soft rays of sunlight seeped into her room, casting warm patterns across her walls. She stretched, shaking off the remnants of her fears from the night before. Today felt different. Today was not just another day. It was the dawning of a new chapter, one that demanded her immediate attention and action. With coffee in hand, she took a moment to breathe in the aroma, grounding herself. The scent had always brought back memories of her childhood, sitting at the kitchen table with her mother, listening to stories that sparked her love for writing. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to write not only for herself but for her children, to craft narratives that wouldn't just illuminate her life, but would serve as beacons for theirs. The temptation to avoid the deeper issues loomed large again. The uncertainty of confronting her past felt daunting. Yet, buried under layers of trepidation, was the realization that vulnerability would fuel her growth. Not just as a writer, but as a woman and a mother. It would carve a path to understanding of who she was, who she had been, and who she wanted to become. Sitting at her desk, Sarah opened her laptop. The blinking cursor seemed a challenge, daring her to type her truth. But as her fingers hovered in anticipation, she paused. Memories of her childhood flooded her mind, painful moments wrapped in deceitful comfort. Those feelings had served as an anchor for years, restricting her from buoying up toward her potential. Would opening that Pandora's box unleash a wave she wasn't ready to confront? The first task was simple. She needed to outline the stories she intended to share. After scribbling a few ideas, she noticed a pattern emerge. Themes of fear, rejection, and ultimately, the pursuit of acceptance. Each memory revealed a lesson, and that's what she could capture in her writing. It wasn't just about confessing pain. It was about framing it in a way her children could understand and learn from. Could she teach them resilience by wearing her scars as badges of honor? With each outline she crafted, Sarah felt lighter. The act of visually mapping out her experiences birthed clarity, an outline of redemption interwoven with shadows. She pictured her children reading these narratives years later, perhaps finding solace in her experiences, knowing that struggles were not solitary burdens, but a shared human journey. Determined, she set a timeline, marking her goal for completion. She scheduled writing sessions for when the kids were at school, turning the pages of her past into something coherent and tangible. The apprehension slowly shifted to excitement. She envisioned her first draft, a raw, uncensored delivery of heart and truth, becoming a stepping stone for both her and her readers. As days turned into weeks, Sarah's confidence blossomed. With every passing session, she ventured deeper, unraveling fears that had long plagued her creativity. Each keystroke pulled her closer to confronting those specters she'd hidden from for far too long. Then came the pivotal moment, a flash of clarity during a late-night writing session. An image of her children popped into her mind, unself-conscious and joyful, reminded her of the power of storytelling. She realized this was not just about her. It was about crafting a legacy of resilience. The truth became evident. Her vulnerabilities could foster strength in her children. They needed to know the woman behind the words, the battles she had fought, and the lessons born from those struggles. With renewed zeal, Sarah combed through her work, transforming every moment of doubt into a lesson. She began to title sections, imprinting them with insights and reflections meant to empower rather than shatter. This realization ignited a passion within her, kindling a fire that burned away the remnants of hesitance. Yet, as she began to finalize her manuscript for potential sharing, an unsettling question loomed. Would the truths she now crafted into narratives come at a cost? Releasing these stories to the world meant revealing her soul. What would her family think? How would they react to the frankness of her reflections, the shadowy corners she dared to traverse? As she sat in her small cocoon of creativity, Sarah felt the weight of duality merge, the complexity of embracing her past while yearning to protect her present. The walls she had meticulously constructed began to tremble under the pressure of her committing these memories to paper. What would happen when the world saw her for who she really was? The tension hung thick in the air as she closed her laptop for the night, the possibilities swirling like autumn leaves caught in a gentle wind. That was the moment she understood. She must confront not only her fears from the past, but the skepticism of her present. The impending revelation felt like a tide ready to sweep in. Tomorrow would come with new words, new challenges, and perhaps a surprising twist to her nascent journey. Her heart raced with an electric thrill. Was she ready for the unveiling? Would this leap of faith reshape her narrative once and for all? The morning sun broke through the curtains, revealing a world slightly more refreshing than how Sarah had left it the night before. She had closed her laptop with unresolved questions, unsure of whether today would bring clarity or chaos. With determination still brewing, she brewed a fresh cup of coffee, then leaned against the kitchen counter, cradling the warm mug. The rich aroma enveloped her, warding off the impending shadows of doubt. Today, she promised herself, would not just be about writing. It would be about confronting those fears that battled within her soul. She took a deep breath, focusing inward. The initial thrill of ambition now met the end of her lengthy descent into self-doubt. Would she walk out of the shadows? Or would she remain trapped by the thought of others' judgments? As her children prepared for school, their laughter echoed from the living room, reminding her of the life that pulsed around her. The innocence and joy they radiated contrasted sharply with the burdens she carried from her past. What if her stories became mirrors through which they could view their own struggles? What if they learned from the very challenges that had become her shackles? After waving goodbye to her kids, she returned to her desk, determined to dig deeper. She knew she had to access the raw emotions that wove through her intended narratives, a greater challenge than simply writing. Instead of retreating into familiar patterns of self-protection, she had to embrace those memories, the good and the profoundly painful. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, and she hesitated again, contemplating which stories could reshape her children's understanding of resilience. Tension crackled in the air as she began typing. The words poured out, releasing truths that made her stomach churn. The narratives morphed from personal accounts into broader lessons about handling disappointment and rejection. She felt exposed, as if stripping away layers of herself in front of an audience that didn't yet exist. Yet within this nakedness blossomed a strange power. With the freedom to express herself came newfound insight. Her strength was rooted in vulnerability. Suddenly, an email notification broke through her focus, jolting her back to reality. It was from an independent publisher who had requested a look at her manuscript. She couldn't ignore the elation tinged with anxiety. With a tightening in her chest, she realized that this was the moment of truth she had long waited for. The call to share her journey, to carve her place as a storyteller. There seemed to be no turning back. She could continue revising and tweaking for months, or finally confront the reality that her words could reach someone in need. Would she prefer stories lurking in her mind, or narratives bravely splashed across pages? The urgency whipped through her. She envisioned the possible impact they could have on readers, her children included. Steeling herself, she clicked send. The echo of the mouse click feeling more like a declaration than a submission. Relief washed over her, followed swiftly by the grim reminder of her responsibilities. What would occur when those echoes of her past resonated with those closest to her? As the day stretched ahead, Sarah could barely focus on mundane tasks. The knowledge that her life's work was now in someone else's hands brought an overwhelming rush of apprehension. Would they question her motives? Would she be able to withstand the scrutiny? For the first time, Sarah felt the stakes of her journey truly submerged, not just for her career, but for her identity as a mother, a writer, and a woman who has lived and learned. By evening, a storm brewed in her thoughts. A confrontation loomed on the horizon, the swirling uncertainty attempting to drown out her aspirations. She had freely given her narrative to a world she barely felt ready to face. What if her children read her words too soon? How would they react to the shadows she unfurled? And yet, as she sat with her heart racing, the thrill of potential applause fought against her fears. Perhaps everyone needed to see the raw, unfiltered struggle she had faced, including her children. In sharing her battles, she could create a path toward understanding, fostering resilience within them. Then, in a twist of fate, her phone pinged. It was an email notification, a response from the publisher. Her hands trembled as she opened it. What had they said? The moment felt pivotal, a thread connecting her past to a future that promised transformation. As she read the words, a revelation struck her. Would this be the catalyst she needed to shake off the chains holding her back? Would she have the courage to embrace not just the possibility of success, but the alchemy of unearthing her truths? Her heart raced again, but this time it wasn't just fear. It was hope mingled with curiosity, a tantalizing glimpse into what lay ahead. Could the forthcoming decisions be the key to unlocking her true potential? Or would they crash her hopes and drown her spirit? A tight knot formed in her gut as she hit refresh, anxiously scanning for the publisher's verdict once more. Sarah sat at her desk, her heart hammering against her ribcage as she reopened the email. The words leaped out at her, their significance cascading into her consciousness. We appreciate your story and are excited about its potential. Even as she read, disbelief and exhilaration began to intermingle. The publisher liked her work. They believed in her voice. The moment felt transcendent, a personal breakthrough she had earnestly chased for what seemed like an eternity. This was it, the culmination of her relentless fight against self-doubt. The high-wire act of motherhood and aspiration had led her to this very point. In that instant, the shadows cast by her insecurities began to shift, illuminated by a burgeoning sense of achievement. Taking a deep breath, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. It was validation of her journey, not just as a writer, but as a mother, a woman who had dared to share her truth. This wasn't just about a book. It was a testament to resilience, a narrative that spoke not only to her experiences, but to all who wrestle with their inner battles. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she filled the evening air with laughter and playful banter, her children's joy permeating every nook and cranny of the room. They were unaware of the shift occurring within their mother, how the triumph over her self-imposed barriers was now part of their story too. She watched their innocent enthusiasm and felt a swell of pride. This was what she had fought for, to show them that dreams could indeed be chased, regardless of the setbacks faced along the way. Sleep came easily that night, her dreams laced with visions of book signings and meaningful discussions about her journey. The notion of sharing her vulnerabilities had morphed from a simmering anxiety into a source of motivation. She awoke the next day with clarity that emboldened her to reach deeper and share with even more authenticity. Armed with renewed resolve, Sarah committed to engaging her children in her evolving narrative. They would be part of this journey, witnessing firsthand the powerful impact of vulnerability. At breakfast, she shared snippets of her writing experience, introducing them to the concept of persistence through adversity. They listened, rapt with attention, nodding enthusiastically as she conveyed the importance of resilience. "Mom, that's like our last school project, right?" her son chimed in, a gleam of recognition in his young eyes. When we practiced and practiced until we got it right? Exactly. The correlation lit her heart aflame. This was a pivotal moment for her children, a chance to learn that failure was merely a stepping stone toward success. As the days transformed into weeks, Sarah embraced her role not only as a storyteller, but also as a mentor. She incorporated writing sessions with her children, crafting whimsical tales together, creating an enriching mother-child bonding experience. These afternoons became filled with laughter, creativity, and affirmation. Their joy became the threads that wove her inextricably to the essence of what she had always wanted to create, a legacy that celebrated authenticity and resilience. The publisher's process proceeded smoothly, and each correspondence reassured her that her work was on the path to publication. Excitement congealed with trepidation. Her book would soon be out in the world. She envisioned her children holding the finished product, their faces beaming with unfiltered pride, and perhaps even a hint of awe at their mother's bravery. Then came the day when Sarah received the final manuscript back. As she opened the bundle, a wave of fulfillment washed over her. This printed work was tangible proof of her transformation, a testament to the weight she had shed in addressing her past and embracing the dynamic story within her. Through painstaking honesty, she had not only triumphed over her personal struggles, but eclipsed the looming judgment from others along the way. The launch day arrived faster than she could have imagined, vibrant with possibility. Surrounded by her children and an encouraging circle of friends, including some fellow writers, she stood before a crowd eager to hear her story. As she shared her journey, speaking directly to the heart of her audience, a remarkable transformation flickered in her. Sarah no longer craved external validation. She had come to understand that her journey was intrinsically worthwhile. When her children responded to her words with cheers of encouragement, Sarah felt a powerful rush of self-acceptance ripple through her being. The girl who had once kneeled in the face of discomfort was now standing proudly, holding space not just for herself, but for all who had ever felt small. In that moment, the applause wasn't just for her book, it was for her journey. She had emerged from the shadows, bathed in the light of her triumph. As the crowd thinned and the day transitioned towards evening, she locked eyes with her children, each reflection filled with admiration. They had witnessed their mother not just conquering doubt, but also evolving. This was a lesson they would carry forward, that life's greatest stories emerged from forged struggles, illuminating the potential within even the deepest wounds. In the following days, Sarah continued to write, pouring her creativity into new narratives that branched out from her transformative journey. But it was marked this time by a solid confidence, a recognized competence in her craft. Her fears had not vanished, yet they no longer held her hostage. With each assembled story, she celebrated concrete growth and authentic fulfillment, her position now established in the literary world. Sarah had achieved something profound. She had embraced who she was with gratitude and pride. With her past now a cherished chapter, rather than a life sentence, she felt a weight lifted, opening the door to endless possibilities. There was no going back. She had transcended the shadows and emerged into a world aglow with opportunity. And now, dear audience, this is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your appreciation for these tales of triumph. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is crucial to keep these inspiring narratives alive.